I'm now going to invite up Emmanuel Lagarrigue, the partner and co-head of climate at KKR. He's going to speak for a few minutes about their work, and then I'm going to have a brief moderated discussion with Emmanuel. Emmanuel, please come up. Please join me in welcoming Emmanuel.
Thank you, Bruce. Well, good morning, everyone. Before we dive into the panel and the Q&A with Bruce, I just wanted to take a step back, right? So as Alton was saying before, it's and that's how we see things at KKR. It's a long game, right? So it's a multi-decade transformation. It's a multi-decade transition. Energy transitions take decades to operate. And I know and I understand it's difficult to apprehend in a world where everything goes extremely fast, where the news cycle is now literally in minutes, where governments can flip on at the turn of a tweet. So it's difficult to apprehend this. And also after 25 years of digital revolution, where all the innovations that are solving other problems or bringing new businesses are happening extremely fast. So it's difficult to say, it's going to take time. So that's the first message. The second message is that we can be hopeful. And if you take that long view, actually we're just entering the fourth inning of this transition to a more decarbonized world. Every one of the first 3 innings took more or less 7 years. I would situate the first one around 2002, and that's the starting point, and going from 2002 to probably 2008. I was after a quite consequential COP in Kyoto, and the Kyoto Protocol, and the realization that everything we just saw was a thing, was going to impact us, and kind of the awareness of governments and institutions around this. Followed by this, there were a number of technological innovations. This is when solar and wind power became a thing. Not really economical yet. You needed a few feed-in tariffs, and around the year 2006, 2007, we saw a real takeoff in places like Spain or Germany on the back of some subsidies or feed-in tariffs of solar and wind. And the Danes were starting to work on really large wind turbines that would be credible on an electric system. So until the financial crisis, right? So the first kind of awareness, and then of course the financial crisis came. Most government, and including the US government, if you look at Obama 1, climate change was not really high on the agenda because there were other priorities to basically save the global economy. But that was the first inning. That was the beginning. Then comes the second one, which probably starts, I would situate 2010, after the dust of the global financial crisis has settled down. Where there's the realization that batteries could be a thing, that storage combined with solar and wind could really change this and be a credible element in the energy transition. At the same time, you had a lot of people who were starting to understand and listen more to activists. Activists in the traditional sense of the word. Greta Thunberg, but also activists on Wall Street, right? So this is when Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, started to write those letters, which had a very heavy sustainability and content. This is when we started to talk about ESG, bundling environment, social, and governance, which in hindsight today may look like a crazy idea, but that was probably good to raise the awareness at that time. So that period, I would situate it where you have a bit of technological innovation, global awareness on the back of activism, more and more active governments, which now can come back to tackle other priorities than just saving the global economy. And now that period culminates basically, so the high point of that period is COP21 in Paris in 2015, where you have the Paris Agreement and a global commitment of basically all the governments on the planet to limit global warming to 2 degrees Celsius. And that period continues up to basically COVID, right? So where everybody starts getting in the action, very government-led. Now in hindsight, you could say probably a bit too much top-down, a bit too much led from government institutions, from Washington, D.C., Brussels, Davos, and all those places, but we had to start somewhere. And then COVID comes. This is where we all learn what a supply chain is about, where having long supply chains is actually a risk. This is also where the Western world starts realizing that China, because they control a lot of supply chains, they also controlling they have their hands on the innovation that is related to the technologies we need to decarbonize the economy: batteries, solar panels, wind turbines, electrolyzers. And this is also when we start realizing that maybe so globalization has been a net positive for all the Western economies, but there have been some pockets of people that were left aside. So this is all the learnings of COVID, and then post-COVID, you see both here with the IRA or in Europe with the Green New Deal, or in Korea or in Japan or in India, a number of policies where the governments were trying to tie together the job creation that those supply chains, the reshoring of those supply chains tied to green technologies would bring with incentives, with a very kind of industrial type policies that we had not seen really since the 60s, at least not in this part of the world, right? So that was inning number 3. That was the third phase where we tried to tie up the decarbonization of the economy with a number of incentives to create jobs, to kickstart programs with a number of tax credits to help with the creation of hydrogen hubs, battery plants, and so on and so forth. That one was actually very short, if you think about it, because that basically goes from early 2021 to now. And now we're entering the fourth inning. I don't know how to call it. I wanted to call it climate pragmatism or realism, but then if you Google this, you may see things that are a bit disturbing. We're entering a phase where it's going to be much more driven by the economics, where both here because of the change of administration, or in Europe because Europe is realizing that there are a number of priorities in defense, in immigration, in competitiveness that need to be balanced, and that probably even there was regulatory overreach also in climate reporting, putting more burden than bringing more burden than good to the economy. So there's a bit that reset and towards something a bit more pragmatic. There's just one thing to keep in mind is we have to avoid any politicization. It's so easy to get there, right? In a world where there's a lot of noise and not much signal. If you listen to the current administration and the current secretary of the DOE, they are not climate deniers. Of course, there's still a number of people making a lot of noise who are inclined to any type of conspiracy theory in climate, in any other topic in society. But they just have a different view, and they are not. They're saying that, yeah, we are cooking up the planet because of an intensive usage of fossil fuels. They just disagree, and that's where the breaking point is, on how urgent it is to solve the climate emergency and to get rid of fossil fuels. That's the breaking point. So I think that's we're entering a new phase, probably more pragmatic, both here in Europe, in Asia. We shouldn't be afraid of this because, again, it's as a society, as an economy, and as economic actors, we policy actors. We're just learning and progressing. If you look at those last 25 years, it's actually not bad where we've gone. Right. Bruce?
Perfect. Thank you, Emmanuel, for that. I really like the 4-inning breakdown, and good to see someone from France explaining things in innings. I like that a lot. We just have about 10 minutes because the talk's very brief, but I want to take from where we are today. You brought us to where we are today, and what trends or disruptions are you focusing on today related to climate solutions and investing opportunities?
Yeah, so there's that notion of green premium that was introduced. I think that was Bill Gates in his book in 2021, if I'm not wrong, where any technology that you're bringing to the economy usually at the beginning is a bit more expensive, and green technologies are no exception. So this is that notion of green premium. How much can you tolerate to pay an extra price for a new technology? And it's clear that over time, the tolerance is zero, right? So the green, if you really want to decarbonize the economy, the green stuff, a car, a power production system, a green steel, green cement, shipping, aviation, all the green solution has to be cheaper. Now, how long can you tolerate the green premium? Can you bury the green premium and compensate with other things? This is the thing. So now, at the end, the rapid adoption is going to come where you have the easiest and fastest elimination of the green premium. Today, that's everything linked to batteries. So batteries to store energy for the grid, for a building like this, if you want to take it offline, and of course for transportation. So this is where the things are evolving. This is where we're spending a lot of time. It's a bit the notion of tipping points, right? So which technologies are in the money? Solar and wind are in the money. It's been a while. The next ones which are going to be in the money is everything that use batteries because the price of batteries has been falling extremely fast. If I had to bet on the falling ones, green steel, green cement, agriculture. Keep in mind that agriculture, the food system generates more emission than the energy system, right? So usually when we say, hey, who are the bad guys? Everybody thinks oil and gas. It's food. Right? So, and there's a lot of opportunities to decarbonize this also.
Batteries, food system, perhaps green steel.
And green steel and green cement probably also.
Yeah. Are there any sectors at the moment that you think have been overhyped that as an investor you'd say, I just don't see the opportunity there that others are talking about?
Yeah, there are two. So there was a lot of, and that's normal, that's part of that learning of new technologies. Hydrogen was clearly overhyped a few years ago. Now that bubble has burst, and of course, a few people are disappointed because many people started to dream of hydrogen as the next LNG and the next and as an easy replacement to gas. No, it's not. I mean, the physics of the hydrogen molecule are very different. You cannot really transport hydrogen over long distances. You cannot put hydrogen in a pipeline and push it like you would push gas. You cannot put hydrogen on a boat and transport it over thousands of miles. I mean, it's physically possible, it's just economically not viable, right? So transporting hydrogen is on a boat over a long distance is roughly 25 times more expensive than doing that with gas. So it's never going to be in the money. You're never going to absorb that green premium. So hydrogen was clearly overhyped. And the problem when you overhype a technology is that of course, when the bubble bursts, the technology, the entire category loses credit. And then the good side of hydrogen, because hydrogen has a role in decarbonization of shipping, of aviation, of steel, but that's the fact that a lot of people have been inflating a bubble that didn't make sense is wiping out even the good solution. So hydrogen was clearly one of the issues. The other one is probably around carbon removals and carbon capture. And then, I mean, if you look at the price of direct air capture today, it's difficult to think that it will one day be economical, but we'll see.
Very, very costly solution. I just want to tie back to Rowley's introduction of climate risk. KKR is a very, very large infrastructure investor. He's very successful in that space. How is the increase in climate risk, the increasing knowledge of climate risk, how does that affect how KKR approaches infrastructure?
Well, it's a key component of of any investment decision across everything we do in private equity, in infrastructure, in credit, in real estate. There is always a climate risk assessment. And once we have invested in a company, so if you're the CEO of one of the 250 KKR portfolio companies, you will be asked to have your climate plan. That's a net zero plan by 2050, of course, but also a constant assessment of your climate risks. This is real, so this is just good management, right? So after all, we are just the custodians of and try to place the money of pension funds, sovereign wealth funds for the long term. So having that long-term perspective means that you have to look at this. It's just not ideological or political, it's just good management and good fiduciary responsibility.
The term energy security, getting a lot of play these days, everywhere globally and different, even across different political parties. What's the connection between energy security and renewable energy or climate change? What are your thoughts on that term?
Actually, it was always about energy security. So yeah, I grew up in France. So France has 75% of the electricity is nuclear. And that program started, and of course, this is why France, and you look at the power system of France, that's, like zero emissions. Nuclear, there's other type of externalities, but at least for CO2 emissions, it's clean. But that program started in late 60s and early 70s. And France didn't do this at that time because of decarbonization. They did it because of energy security, because they had lost the access to a number of oil and gas resources. They felt that was the first oil shock. Right? So you have to keep in mind that Europe has a very different natural resource landscape. There's no natural resources, except for a little bit of gas in Scotland and in Norway. So Europe has, by and large, always had to import their energy sources. So this is why France in the 70s, well, energy security is nuclear, because they had a bit of knowledge. This is why also now Europe, when they think about energy security, and especially the eastern part of Europe and Germany and all this, they say, well, we were probably a bit too dependent on Russian gas, and look what happened. If we replace that Russian gas by LNG imported from Texas, well, we're not sure the US has that of a reliable ally anymore. We've been clearly told that we have to grow up on the defense side. So this is why basically the Europeans say, yeah, maybe we don't have resources. We're not sure whether we can import the fossil fuels. Maybe we're going to double down on renewables. So there's a close link between energy security and whatever country does in the choices of the energy mix.
I like the point about energy security. It's always been
It has always been a driver.
Just happens to be in the public discourse at the moment. So we only have time for really one last question. That's to bring it here to Columbia, which is the question is for students here in the room. What advice would you give them aspiring to work in this sector? It's what do you say about being resilient and adapting to this challenging sector?
Well, it's always whatever choice you make for your career. It's always about being curious and resilient, and again, anything in the decarbonization of energy, transportation, heavy industry, food, buildings, including data centers. We're talking about massive amounts of investments, of infrastructures. So those things will take time. There is no magic wand, and there is no overnight success. And again, we've been used to 25 years. Actually, if you think about it, OpenAI is not an overnight success either. Just check when it was founded, right? And this is sometimes why it's difficult to apprehend, because we live in that world where there's a lot of noise, a lot of cycles, but things take time. So this is why you have to be resilient and curious and open-minded. Again, the example is the current administration is not about climate denying. They just have a different view on how urgent it is to solve the climate emergency.
Terrific advice. Please join me in thanking Emmanuel Lagarrigue.
Thank you.